Access to Democracy is made possible thanks to the following organizations. Sheridan & Dulas, PA, a family and criminal defense law firm that has been serving clients in Dakota County and throughout Minnesota for over 40 years. Ranked a Tier 1 Best Law Firm by U.S. News and World Report every year since 2009. Sheridan & Dulas are here to help you in your most difficult life circumstances. Established in 2007, 45th Parallel Distillery was among the first 50 microdistilleries in the United States. Based in New Richmond, Wisconsin, all aspects of production occur at their facility. If you're interested in learning more about the 45th Parallel Distillery, please check their website and plan a visit to tour their facility and taste their spirits. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org.
Hello and welcome to Access to Democracy. I'm your host, Steve Francisco. It's a pleasure to welcome to our studio today an old friend of mine who is actually making her first appearance on our program, Leah Gardner, who is a member of the Independent School District 196 School Board here in the South Metro. Leah, welcome to your first appearance on Access to Democracy.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I always like to ask first-time guests, tell us a little bit about yourself so people can learn something about you. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? Where did you go to college?
Yeah, well, I grew up mostly in Wisconsin and came to the cities for college. I went to the University of St. Thomas for my undergrad degree, and then to the University of Minnesota, to the Humphrey School for my master's in public policy.
What was your undergraduate degree in?
Business.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And you have had, actually for someone so young, you've had a very extensive career in the nonprofit sector. Tell us a little bit about that. What jobs have you done and are still doing in the nonprofit sector?
Yeah. Well, so for a while, my first part of my work was actually indirect service with an organization called Project for Pride in Living. I think now they mostly just go by PPL. Working with people who are really struggling to make ends meet and, supporting them with everything from housing to job training to other support services. So I was an employment trainer, if you will, and used my degree with a focus on human resources and helping people get access to their first careers. So that's what I did for, I don't remember now how many years, but let's say roughly, not quite a decade, but almost. And then I realized that there were, sort of systemic issues that I wanted to address. Went to Humphrey and got my public policy degree, and then ended up at the Council of Nonprofits, where we were able to work together.
Where you and I worked together,
Yes.
right? We both worked together on the Minnesota Budget Project.
Yes, so learned a ton there on budget, state budget issues, and again, focusing on how we support families that are struggling to make ends meet. And then really was lucky to land in the hunger relief sector, and that's where I've been for about the last 10 years with the food group, formerly Hunger Solutions. Yeah.
And the food group is a merger of two different organizations, right?
Yeah, so when Hunger Solutions merged with the food group, traditionally at Hunger Solutions, we were a fairly small shop working on advocating with and for the hunger relief sector. So almost think of an association of food shelves that are very busy on the ground doing the work, right? So not necessarily able to be in constant contact with lawmakers and other decision makers. So that's a big part of what Hunger Solutions was focused on. And then we ended up combining with the food group, who also cared about advocacy, but really leaned on the Hunger Solutions. So brought our advocacy team into the food group, but now we also get to have a much bigger focus. So the food group is traditionally a food bank, so similar to many people know Second Harvest as our biggest food bank. So similarly, we have a warehouse and distribute food to food shelves across the region. And then we also have an incubator farm program. So we work to help emerging farmers grow and start so that we have more culturally relevant foods for our hunger relief sector and for the whole food system. And a variety of other things to help make sure that we have groceries that are affordable. So we even have a program called Fair for All that comes here to Eagan with discounted grocery products that everyone can access. So we do a range of things, but my work is still focused on the advocacy and
meaning you're talking to state legislators, to members of Congress to make sure that they are informed and educated about these issues and how programs such as SNAP and other things affect people who live in our community.
Exactly. Yes.
And having been an advocate myself on federal issues, we're sort of kindred spirits on that. By the way, we can't leave the subject of your advocacy on hunger issues without mentioning our dear friend, your former colleague, Colleen Moriarty, who was the executive director of Hunger Solutions for many years and had been a guest on this program. I've interviewed Colleen at least twice prior to her retirement. We wish her well in retirement.
And one fun thing that I really owe Colleen's vision to together, I think the last her last goal, if you will, for her career was passing universal school meals, and I got to work on that campaign with her. And it's the example I bring up of how we actually can make transformative change happen. And so that was just the best way for us to complete a chapter of our work together, was getting that passed a couple of years ago.
And I recall seeing Governor Walz signing that into law, and there was Colleen and many other anti-hunger advocates and nutrition advocates who were there when the governor signed that in. Definitely a signature accomplishment for Hunger Solutions and for Colleen personally, all of you personally who worked on that issue. That's tremendous. So let's jump ahead then and tell us what inspired you to run for the school board here in Independent School District 196. First, before you answer that though, tell our viewers, what geographic area, what cities does Independent School District 196 cover?
Yes, so predominantly we are representing and covering Eagan, Apple Valley, and Rosemount. Our boundaries actually do pull from a couple other rural parts beyond that, but we cover all of the cities, or most of the cities of Eagan, Apple Valley, and Rosemount. We have a little bit coming from Lakeville, from Inver Grove Heights. It's hard to succinctly describe our very large district.
And it's a big district too, as I understand it. I thought I saw it was the 5th biggest school district in Minnesota.
3rd largest now.
3rd largest.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for correcting me.
Big.
So again, what was it that prompted you to run for the school board? Or how did you were originally appointed to the school board, but then ran and got elected?
That's right. Yep. So I would say, as we were getting comfortable in moving to Eagan around the time that my son was, he was in preschool, but, getting ready to start his public school education, I wanted to just get involved, right? And to do what I could to support the community. And I thought, well, the most important thing in our lives is about to be his education. Right. And so really wanted to look at if there was something I could do to support the school district. And initially, I was on the District 196 Foundation board, and that is an important resource that we have for the district where students might have barriers to, say, band equipment. I actually can speak to this as a parent whose kid just started band. It's expensive getting an instrument, right? But you don't want that to be a barrier, because that can be such an important learning opportunity for our students. So District 196 the foundation works on removing those barriers. So providing free band equipment to students who need it, books, a variety of things, just, taking away barriers so that our kids are reading during the summer, accessing the programs that they want to access, getting the additional resources they need so that everyone's able to, learn and thrive in the district. So that's what the foundation does. And I felt like that was a good fit with my work in hunger relief, understanding that we do have actually a lot of families struggling here in the district, more than I think some might assume. So.
Leah, I think it surprises people, and I've spoken with Jason Viana, the executive director of the Open Door Food Pantry, and with Colleen Moriarty on previous interviews. It surprises people when they learn the extent of food insecurity and hunger issues, even here in the South Metro, which I think most of us think of as an affluent, relatively affluent community.
Yeah, and so that is part of what got me interested in stepping into actually being on the board, because when you think about our community, we're very diverse. We're a diverse district. We do have a little bit of everything. So we do have families that are struggling, that are here because it's more affordable to find housing. And then we do have, of course, a lot of families that are doing well. But so I think that does sort of muddy the waters when we think about how do we support our students. Well, we don't just have one type of student. We have really quite a variety. But when we look at how are we doing in educating our students, I thought it was interesting. I was looking to see how are we doing by our BIPOC students, but even a bigger driver of outcomes is income. So looking at our free and reduced price meal population is a bigger indicator of outcomes than even race and ethnicity.
That's very interesting, that correlation between those two factors.
Yeah. And so that's really one of my main points of emphasis is, because I do hunger relief in my day job, because I have my own background in understanding what it is to struggle and break through and how important education is to that, I'm always looking at things that we might not think, that we might consider negligible for those of us that aren't struggling, but might really be a barrier for some of our families, and just looking at that. So one example I give is, let's say you do well and your family struggled, but you had a good education and you're ready to graduate. There's a fee in order to participate in our graduation. Is that a barrier for anyone? Are we making sure that we know you can walk through our graduation, you get to participate in a graduation ceremony, whether or not you're able to pay our cap and gown fee? So it sometimes becomes really little things, but I want to make sure that we don't have economic stigma, at any point in our schools here.
That's really important. How many schools are in the District 196 system, approximately?
Yeah, so about 20, and we just built, so if you're in Rosemount, and are probably very excited about that we just built a new elementary school that just opened this fall there. And
is that off County Road 42?
So,
because there's a whole bunch of new
it is.
housing development there in the eastern end of Rosemount. It's just incredible.
Right.
I remember driving down 42 a few years ago, and there were just cornfields on either side of the road. Now there's a Lifetime Fitness, there are grocery stores, there's housing, new apartments and condos, and now a new school.
Yeah, a lot of new young families in that area, and it is a beautiful new school. So we're very glad.
And approximately how many students are in the ISD 196 system?
So we have just under 30,000 students. So pretty, like we were saying before, third largest in Minnesota. We're a big district, yep.
And I see you have approximately, am I correct, 2,100 teachers, about 4,000 staff who support the mission of ISD 196.
That's right.
What is the annual budget for the school district for 196?
Roughly $500 million.
$500,000, yeah.
Half a million, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah.
500.
About 500,000, yeah.
A year, yeah. After the recent horrific school shooting at the Annunciation Church and School in South Minneapolis, school safety is obviously at the forefront of concern for many parents, teachers, and staff in our schools. What proactive steps are being taken by ISD 196 to protect students and staff when they go to school?
Yeah, so absolutely horrific situation and something that, really rocks the entire school and education community. So I feel it as a parent. We heard from staff and I've talked with leadership to make sure that, we have our safety plans rock solid here in District 196. It's tough because every situation is different, and I don't know that I think that there are, I'll just say, I think that there are solutions that go far beyond the walls of our schools that need to be looked at if we're really going to address these issues. But we absolutely prioritize the safety and security of our students at the forefront. And so one of the best ways is that we take very seriously having secure entries. So you can't just come into any of our schools. You do need to have proper identification, and there's a process. So the very most important thing is that we know who's in our buildings and that we're paying close attention to that.
And you work closely with law enforcement, I would guess the schools do. I know Eagan High School does. We've had Chief Roger New, the Eagan Police Department, has been on the show several times. And he actually started out as an SRO, a school resource officer. So we have other SROs in place in other schools within ISD 196?
Yes. So we have a great relationship with our police departments. I would just say, first and foremost, we have had very recently a safety conversation with our police department, just so we all know and are on the same page about what our plans are and what our procedures are, and that's true for all. Staff and students also go through pretty regular drills and procedures of how we handle things. So
I was just about to ask you that, and I certainly don't want to get into any specific steps, but I hate to have to even ask this question. Do we do regular drills in the schools in ISD 196 for faculty, staff, students?
Yes.
In the case of an active shooter situation?
Unfortunately, I think that's a necessity, and I hope every district is doing that. We certainly do.
It's terrible that we even have to ask that, but very sadly, that is the reality of the world we're living in. That children are not necessarily always safe at school. People are not necessarily safe in a place of worship, whether it's a church or a synagogue or a mosque. We've seen too many of these incidents, and I think you're absolutely correct too, your assessment that there are many complicated factors that go into why these circumstances are existing.
Yeah, and I will say on the safety component, I'm not at liberty to go into a ton of detail, but I do want to say that there's more going on than would be abundantly apparent. So the level of training and thought that's going into this is more than we're advertising, if you will, right? So we do put a ton of thought into it, and I think have worked increasingly to make sure that everyone understands what to do in a variety of situations. And so there's clear communication, instant communication, not just in the building, but then also beyond the building. So yeah, we have a lot in place on that, and I think there's also a mental health conversation that we could talk about as well.
I wanted to ask you about that. I'm glad you brought that up. On the ISD 196 website, I found there's a video, Positive Behavioral Interventions and Support. This particular video was made, I believe, at Falcon Ridge Middle School. What is this about? And does it get to the issue of identifying and addressing perhaps issues such as bullying or other things that can lead to situations that escalate out of control?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. So part of what we want students to learn and what we're trying to teach is how to be a human being, if you will, right? I mean, I remember when my son was in kindergarten, my questions were less about the academics and more about, is he learning how to interact with other kids? He's an only child, so it's partly,
right.
How do you engage with your peers in a respectful way? And that's critical to our learning environment, to having a good learning environment, all the way kindergarten through high school, right? And it gets more complicated. You think of, as kids are growing, their identity is changing, and they're figuring out who they are and
they're
how
discovering who they are in
Yes.
addition to discovering who their classmates are.
Yes, and inevitably, they do have to learn how to treat each other, and sometimes come up against something that they don't like, and how do you address that? So, yeah, throughout all of our schools, we were doing age-appropriate learning about how do you take care of yourself, how do you respect other people, and what are the expectations in the school environment.
And letting someone know if your child is perhaps being bullied. Sadly, we hear many stories of this, and a lot of it doesn't even necessarily occur in the school, it occurs online.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that, obviously as an older person, we didn't have the internet when I was in high school. If somebody bullied you, it was face to face. But now people posting things anonymously that can do tremendous harm to a child's emotional development or their feeling of security in school. Yeah. Let us talk now about a very important issue that is going to be before the voters here in Eagan, Apple Valley, and Rosemount, the Technical Capital Projects Levy 2025, which is going to be on the ballot here. Tell us what this is, and is this a new levy or renewing an existing levy?
Yeah,
and then tell us what it's for.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking, because it is actually renewing a levy. So, and it's something that comes up in a 10-year increment. So back 10 years ago, in 2015, we put before the voters technology levy, and that was so that we could have just a variety of technology to support student learning, focused on student learning. So that's when we began having one-on-one devices, one-to-one devices for students. So it's an iPad that our students have across all ages. So they have access to technology, right? Which is increasingly, it's central to learning and getting prepared for the outside world, for careers. And that's actually part of where we do also some learnings about how to be a good digital citizen. So kind of back to the earlier conversation with our expectations.
Right.
But so that technology is, of course, it became very critical during the pandemic, so that learning can happen outside of the schoolroom and communication can happen easily. But it's so embedded now in how we do our instruction, how we do our testing. It creates a ton of efficiencies for us as a district, in addition to providing students more exposure to technology, which you might be surprised at how many fields that actually, even if you think of something, like nursing or welding, you might not think of it as a high-tech field, but increasingly every field is. So those devices are critical. And so, the levy is renewing our existing.
How much money does the district hope to seek? I'm assuming because the board approved this, they put it before the voters. How much money are you seeking? And what homeowners or taxpayers are interested in, how much, if it were to be approved, how much would I see my taxes increase?
Yep, exactly.
Let's cut right to the chase of what people worry about.
And I should say it's renewing and then adding and having a modest increase on it. So it's both. It's renewing at the roughly 3% and then up to 5%, just to announce those figures. And there's more information readily available on our website. But I think what people want to know is, what is this going to mean for them? We don't take lightly asking the taxpayers for more resources. We really focus on what do we need and keep it to that. So this is a pretty modest increase, but it's going to amount to about $7 per month for a household, or for a median household of
$85 a year on a $400,000 home. That's the information I pulled down from your website. And there's also something, I didn't know this, there's something called the Ehlers Online Tax Calculator. So maybe your home isn't worth $400,000, it's something less than that, maybe it's more. but you can go online and look at this Eller's online tax calculator to see how much the levy would increase your
Yes.
taxes.
And you can find that and a ton more info about the levy on our website. But yeah, super important. We, to be honest, it's just really, this is going to be critical for us as a district to avoid having to make some tough choices or potentially have painful cuts on the table.
And we should mention, correct me if I'm wrong, actually we're recording this show today on September 19th. This is the first day of early voting on this levy issue and other issues on the ballot or candidates. And then, of course, Election Day, November 5th, and obviously, or 4th, I'm sorry. So you're encouraging voters to vote yes on this. The question's going to be yes or no. And if a majority votes yes, obviously, the extension of this existing levy would be approved.
Yes. So speaking for myself as a candidate and member of the school board, I definitely think this levy is critical for us and hope people will vote for it. Yeah.
Very good. Let's turn, if we can, we're down to about 2.5 minutes here. An issue that's been in the news lately, the issue of childhood vaccinations, student vaccinations. Minnesota law requires students before they can be enrolled in school to have certain vaccinations before they can come to school. In the news recently, we saw that the state of Florida actually abolished all of their mandatory statewide vaccinations for school children. Do you have any thoughts on this? Should Minnesota continue to maintain mandatory vaccination requirements, and why is that important?
Yeah. Well, I feel personally as a parent that we lived through some really scary times. My son, his first years, he was in kindergarten when the pandemic hit, and I think about in our immediate family, we had immune compromised members of our household, and you just never know. Maybe for your family, you're not as concerned, but when we're talking about public schools and wanting to make our schools a safe place for everyone, we don't want anyone to have to be thinking about choosing between school or their health. So that's why, I think it's really important that we continue to have science-based practices and have our students be healthy and vaccinated. And of course, there are ways for people to ask for an exception.
There are exemptions in the law if
Yep.
there's a medical reason, or perhaps there's even a religious
Yes.
reason. So there are those exemptions that are available, but you have to apply for those.
Yes. So our expectation is that we're keeping everyone safe by having everyone up to date on their vaccines, and we provide opportunities for, to help make sure that everyone can access those vaccinations as well. And if there's a reason that doesn't work for a family, then there's a process. Yep.
And it's really important to remember, again, too, it's not just the idea that that student is protecting their health. You're protecting other students from being exposed to something that you may contract, you
Yep.
know. So we're talking about serious things like polio and measles, which we've seen an uptick in recently. So.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Leah, as is always the case, we've run out of time today. Leah Gardner, a member of the ISD Independent School District 196 Board, thank you for being our guest today on Access to Democracy. Thank you, our viewers, for watching. You can find more Access to Democracy at our website, accesstodemocracy.com.